Hello and welcome to another English class. Today I'm very cold and tired. I don't think I slept well enough. But regardless, let's look at passive voice. Now, I will be doing more passive voice videos because I need more than one video to explain all the details of passive voice, including all the tenses, okay? Very important that you know how to use passive voice in all of the tenses. So that'll be coming soon. Today, I want to talk about the grammar of passive voice and the purpose of passive voice. Why do we use it and when do we use it? Let's look at an active sentence. Okay, this is the first example of when we use passive voice, when we don't know who the subject is. Somebody robbed the National Bank. This is informal. Somebody, that's your subject, robbed, that's your verb, in this case past simple, the National Bank, that's your object. Okay, you could say this to your friend, relative, neighbor, colleague, anything like that. Oh, somebody robbed the National Bank. Oh, really? But imagine you're watching the news and the newscaster says, today somebody robbed the National Bank. It's too vague and it's too unprofessional. So the reporter would use passive voice. The National Bank was robbed. Now this is formal for use such as reporting news, okay? So how do we make our passive sentence? We take our object from the active sentence and we make this our subject. And then we must use a form of the verb to be, the correct conjugation of to be. In this case, the sentence is past simple, so we use was. We don't use were because the National Bank is singular. If it were banks, it would be were robbed, but it's one bank, the National Bank was robbed, and we must use the past participle. Now in this case, the past participle is the same as the past simple because it's a regular verb, and all regular verbs have the same form for past simple and past participle. Many irregular verbs have the same form for past simple and past participle, but not all of them. Some verbs have one form, let, put. Some have two forms, make, made, made, or rob, robbed, robbed. And some have three forms, forgive, forgave, forgiven. So you must always use the third one for passive voice, the past participle. Okay? You've got your infinitive, your past simple, and your past participle. The past participle, the third choice, is the one you use for passive voice. Regular verbs always have the same past simple and past participle. There may be one or two verbs that use an irregular past participle, but that's not the point here. Now, when you use passive voice, the preposition is by, and then the original subject of the active sentence, by somebody. But there's no point here. This is superfluous because obviously the National Bank was robbed by somebody. It wasn't robbed by a horse or a cucumber. Of course it was robbed by somebody. So this is completely irrelevant. This reporter doesn't have to say this because it's completely superfluous. Okay, so there you go. We use the passive voice when we don't know who the subject is. We also use the passive voice when the subject could be anybody at all. If you're reading instructions, then you want to learn, but the person writing the instructions doesn't know who you are. They don't know who's reading this, so they use a generic you. You fill the beaker, then you heat it. That's an informal instruction, okay? Subject, you, verb, fill, the object, the beaker. You fill the beaker. Then you, subject, heat, verb, it, object. It being the beaker, because we've already mentioned it, so we use it this time instead of repeating the beaker. But that's informal. If you're reading a science book or an education book, you don't see sentences like that. You see sentences like this, passive voice. The subject is the original object, the object becomes the subject, the beaker. Then you've got to use the verb to be. Remember, always use the correct conjugation of to be. In this case, this is present simple, and it's it, so we use is. Okay, I am, you are, he, she, it is. So the beaker is filled. Now we use the past participle. We see we've got the infinitive because this is present simple, but we have to use the past participle in the passive sentence. Then it, your object becomes your subject, is, again, present simple, the verb to be, heated, okay? The verb, past participle of the verb. The beaker is filled, then it is heated. That's academic or scientific instruction, okay? I hope it's all clear. It should be. And the final reason we use passive voice is when we don't care who the subject is. We simply don't care. For example, John Ball bought a Renoir painting for £1 million. Really? Who the is John Ball? I don't know. It's irrelevant. If anyone watching this is called John Ball, I'm sincerely sorry, John. This was just a random name I picked out of my head, okay? I'm not saying you're irrelevant. I mean, the people reading this news don't know who John Ball is. Who's John Ball? We don't care, so why is he in the headline? That's informal. So when you're reporting this, you wouldn't say John Ball bought a Renoir painting. People would say, who's John Ball? If it's someone famous, then yeah, okay, mention the famous person. For example, Madonna bought a Renoir painting. Okay, that has some value because people care about Madonna and what paintings she owns, I suppose. But we don't care about John Ball. Sorry, John Ball. A Renoir painting was bought for £1 million. Reporting, okay? Now, we take our object, a Renoir painting, it becomes the subject, a Renoir painting. And it's past simple, and it's it, so we use was, okay? It was bought, past participle, for £1 million, okay? We use passive voice when we don't know who the subject is, when the subject is anybody who wants to know something, or when we don't care about the subject. Okay? And it sounds nice, passive voice. It has a nice formal sound to it. I love passive voice. I hope you learned a lot from that, and I hope you enjoyed it. Please subscribe to my channel for this kind of thing. I'll be doing more passive voice videos soon. Please hit like, thumbs up, I appreciate that. Share this with anybody you know who's learning English. And leave a comment if you have any doubts or questions or you want to say hello. Have a lovely day, and I'll see you very soon for another class. Bye-bye.